everybody, what is up? I am back with some more Legends of Runeterra deck types, and I'm pretty excited for this deck in particular. Haven't seen much about it on YouTube. It seems like a super fun deck. I've played it, and honestly, the speed with which this deck can wreck the opponent is absolutely bonkers. This deck is fun, it is fast, it is super powerful when it works, and honestly, it has worked a lot. I mean, I've played it quite a lot recently. Can't think of many games I've actually lost with it yet, and as you'll see in the two games I have as an example here, we actually win rather quickly. So, as always, welcome back if you have been here before. If not, my name is Justin, also known as Shit Just Works, and today we're going over a token aggro deck. There's already three different types of aggro decks out there right now. There is spider aggro, there's burn aggro, and there's discard aggro. Technically, this is also a spider aggro deck, but we're focusing more on the token aspect of it, which we'll get into in a second. So, without further ado, if you are looking for some new, crazy, fun, cool ideas for decks, because that's what I'm all about. I hate playing meta decks. Love playing those fun, crazy ideas, especially OTKs and stuff like that. That's what you're here for. You're in the right spot. Let's get into this deck. Let's get into this. Here is the deck list, which will also be in the description below. You have the deck code, which you can copy and paste right into Legends of Runeterra so you can get access to it. And also, we're going to be putting this up on Mobilytics so you guys can see the full deck list in its glory. Honestly, the first thing I have to say about this is the speed with which this thing can win. I mean, I think these two games that I have in this video, that won by turn 5 and turn 6. Absolutely nuts how quickly this can flood the board and just kill the opponent. The only thing you're really going to worry about, obviously, are big AoE clears like Withering Wail and Avalanche, but we're going to talk about that in a second. What I do want to mention is the fact that I am going to label this as more of a token aggro deck, and that is because although the tokens happen to be spiders, the reason this deck succeeds is not necessarily because of spiders, more so because of the token cards that work with it, such as Iceborne Legacy, Pack Mentality, They Who Endure, and Scuttlegeist, which was recently buffed. So I imagine in the future as well, there's going to be other, archetypes that come out with other sets that release token-like cards where those cards I just mentioned, they can kind of fit in anywhere. They're not spiders, right? They work with anything. Pack Mentality is given ally and other allies of the same type. So it could be beast, it could be spider, it could be, Yeti, whatever is in Legends of Runeterra, it will work on. So in the future, I definitely see this deck morphing to not just be spiders, but to be other things as well. So the overall strategy is basically get Iceborne Legacy off on a Spiderling ASAP. You don't want to just play it. You do want to wait until your opponent tries killing one of them. Them playing a Withering Wisp on like 3 or 4 Spiderlings and having Iceborne in hand feels so good. Let me tell you, it feels absolutely amazing. So that's kind of the perfect scenario that you're going for, or really just saving, any Spiderlings against removal using the Iceborne Legacy. So with using Iceborne Legacy, you basically want to just keep flooding the board, get as many strong tokens out there as possible. And the good thing is, every time you summon more tokens, they're going to get any Iceborne Legacy buffs that have happened throughout the whole game. So as an example, if you use a Vile Feast now becomes a ridiculously strong card. You can peg one of their, 1 life units, go ahead and get that 1 life heal, and now get a 2/2, a 3/3, or even a 4/4 Spiderling for 2 mana. That's insane. Even a 2/2 for 2 mana on top of the removal is insane. The one thing you do want to try to do is, you can see here we have a Glimpse Beyond at 3. That's pretty much in any Shadow Isles deck at this point. You don't want to wait to play Glimpse Beyond. You need to be drawing into the Iceborne Legacies as quickly as possible. So if you can get a Glimpse Beyond off, definitely try to do it early game. Do it the second you see your opponent falls below enough mana in whatever region they're in to be able to successfully negate the Glimpse Beyond. Like as an example, something like Noxus, if you're going against an aggro deck, if they play a Blade's Edge, might be a little difficult, because if you're trying to sacrifice a Spiderling, they might throw the Blade's Edge at it, kill it, and now you can't get the Glimpse Beyond off. So you're really going to be careful about the timing of the Glimpse Beyond, Mystic Shot from Piltover and Zon, things of that nature. if your opponent does get off a successful Withering Wail or Avalanche, you do usually still have a chance. You just got to kind of balance what you still have in your hand available to flood the board versus what's currently flooding the board. Usually you can get 2, 3, or 4 more Spiderling tokens out pretty fast if you hold on to a a Crawling Sensation, as an example, is an easy way to get 2 more tokens. A 1 mana summon 2 2/2s or a 1 mana summon 2 3/3s is pretty insane. So definitely just make sure you're holding back 1 or 2 cards that'll enable you to flood the board again quickly. If you do commit your entire hand to the board, and let's say you're worried about an Avalanche at this point, make sure it's only if you have a Phantom Prankster in play. That will usually make it safe, so that at that point you're just worried about lethal. Because if they do manage to kill the other, let's say 5 tokens that you have, that's 5 damage to their face, which will quickly kill them. So, and again, you could top deck into something else that will spawn more tokens pretty quickly. So, just keep that in mind if you are going for that final push to get that Phantom Prankster on the board in the event that they play an Avalanche or something. Special mentions! Before we get into these next 2 games, which are super fast because we wreck the opponent, we're going to mention a couple cool cards that aren't typically played in a lot of decks. We do have Brood Awakening here, which honestly feels way better at 6 mana because it used to be 5 mana. Feels incredibly better at 6 mana with the Iceborne Legacies. Now you are buffing things that are all 2/2s or 3/3 tokens, giving them an additional 1 attack, which is great, especially if they have Fearsome from the Elise. There's also They Who Endure, which I have seen that played here and there. This thing becomes ridiculously strong by the end of the game. If you haven't already won by turn 5 or 6, this is usually on turn 6, you're playing this card, and it's like a 9/9 or a 10/10. So having a 10/10 on turn 6 with Overwhelm is usually, by then you've already pushed a decent amount of damage. You're going to get the extra 5 damage you need with the Overwhelm to just overwhelm your opponent for victory. See what I did there? So Pack Mentality is another crazy card that I've never seen anybody try to competitively play this card. It's a 7 cost slow spell. That's inherently what's wrong with it, right? And I get it. It's not the best because of that. It could get denied. Denied did get nerfed to cost 4 mana. So it definitely becomes a little bit better because of that. It's similar to Demasia's 4 Demacia, which is +3/+3 to all that costs 6 mana, but they don't get Overwhelm. It also is a little different because it's based on the type of, or the group that they're in. So if it's a Yeti or if it's a Spiderling or something like that. So it's not necessarily going to be everything on your side of the field. But they do get Overwhelm, which is the absolutely ridiculous part of this card, because usually if your opponent is usually your opponent's going to be expending most of their mana to try to keep up with your board, because you're pressuring and flooding the board. So they're going to be spending everything to try to at least mitigate what's happening currently. So generally speaking, you can get this off when your opponent has 3, 2, or 1 mana and not have to worry about deny. And if you're not playing against an Ionia deck, then you're usually 100% in the clear regardless. So without further ado, we're going to get into the games. All right, so here's our first matchup. Kind of a weird matchup, not going to lie. I don't know what the heck this guy is playing. He's got Garen, Braum, and Tryndamere. So, hey, it is what it is. I ain't judging. So, we got the Elises in the first hand. Honestly, if you got 3 Elises first hand, you want to keep 3 Elises. Even when she turns into her spell, Crawling Sensation, the spell is insane in this deck. You're almost always going to be able to get it off very, very easily. So this is going to be a no-brainer as far as dropping Elise on turn 2, even though it's on a defensive turn. So he's going to take the open attack. We're going to drop the Elise, and then we're going to go into our next turn, probably just taking an open attack. We do already have the Iceborne Legacy, which is absolutely nuts. That's great. It's exactly what you want first hand. Generally speaking, if you have an Iceborne Legacy first hand, you're in a good spot. Your percentage chance to win the game is way higher than it would be without it. So that's great. So I think we do take the open attack here. It seems like the best possible thing to do because we have the Iceborne Legacy in hand. So now if he does go into block with anything, I can go ahead and use the Iceborne Legacy. In this case, I could also glimpse the Spiderling if I wanted to do that and get a little bit of draw off. So a lot of options here. I do decide to let the Spiderling die, mainly because I have another Crawling Sensation in my hand, which I can use because now the Spiderling's dead. So there's a lot of options when you have a hand like this with this deck early on in the game. Honestly, if you have cards that have the effect or have a trigger that needs, something to die, you're gonna want to use those first or try to get those off first, so that you don't have to worry about meeting that criteria further down the line. It might be a little bit more difficult when your opponent gets more of a control on the game, right? So as you can see here, now we're in a beautiful spot. Usually you're worried that your 1/1 tokens are gonna die. It's gonna be an issue. Now at this point, we're in, if he does anything to these tokens, we're gonna Iceborne Legacy. They're probably gonna live. This Frenzied Skitterer is great. When this card first came out, I was not thinking Frenzied Skitterer was going to be the best of cards. In a spot like this, where it just reduced Braum to 0 and it reduced the bird to 1, so it's going to die no matter what. This is great. I mean, this does everything you want it to for this turn. It basically completely turns it around. It makes it so that whatever offensive plans my opponent had basically go down the drain. So you can see my opponent starts using Braum here. Braum, honestly, is a pain for this deck. I'm not gonna lie. Kind of stinks that he got it so early on, and I think it takes me a little while to deal with him throughout the rest of the game. I am gonna go ahead now that he's lined everything up, save one of the Spiderlings from the bird by doing the Iceborne Legacy. The other one will still die anyways, but we do get a little bit more chip damage in on their other unit, the Laurent. So now the best part about this is now I'm going into an attack turn, and his units are not going to be able to block the Elise or the other fearsome unit, right? The Skitterer. So we're in a very good spot here. I decide to actually take the open Brute Awakening, I think, because at this point, if you go so wide on a turn like this that you're going to six followers at this point, there's no way they're going to block even close to that many followers. Being the deck that he's playing too, I'm not really putting him on even playing Avalanche. Avalanche would be this deck would get murdered right now if they were playing Avalanche, because my Elise and the Skitterer would survive, but all of my tokens would go down the drain. Now, if that were to happen, on the bright side, that's why we have things like They Who Endure, like the Scuttlegeist that's in the hand right now as well. Those 100% allow you to come back a little bit when things like Avalanche are played. And even if he did have an Avalanche, he would have actually lost one of his own units as well. So it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But definitely helps that he is playing a deck that does not play Avalanche. And the reason I think he's not on Avalanche, by the way, for anybody trying to get more into like advanced card games and really reading your opponent and stuff, he's playing Demacia. Demacia is a unit buff region. And he's playing the Avarosian Hearthguard. So even if I didn't know he had that in there prior to him playing it, I'm seeing him play Challenger units. I'm seeing him play Demacia. He's got a lot of buff cards. To me, that's not something that's going to play Avalanche. Avalanche is more of a control-y card. And obviously, they're trying to control the game with their followers, right? So there's no need for him to play any control cards like Avalanche. I only attack with the Skitterer because he has to block with either Laurent or Avarosian. Both are going to die thanks to the Fearsome, and he's not going to get an extra proc of damage off on the Braum so early. So now we're in a position where we have Brute Awakening again. We also have a Glimpse, and we also have a Scuttlegeist. The Scuttlegeist at this point, with how many Spiderlings we have in the field, is almost definitely going to cost 1 or 0 at some point. He goes down to 2 mana. So now, once he's got, down to 2 mana like that, we basically have free game to do whatever we want. It's pretty obvious that he's just going to challenge 3 of the Spiderlings, or pretty much all of the Spiderlings, and use these birds up here to, try to pick off 2 of them. We do have the Drain to, kill one of them and then summon a token. And this is what is so great about this card now, Vile Feast, is that, not only are you're picking off 1 unit and, doing the 1 damage and healing 1 life, but now you're summoning a 2/2. And honestly, a 2/2 token is a lot in this game. And then a 3/3, if you manage to get 2 Iceborne Legacies off, a 3/3 token is great in this game. The difference between 2 life and 3 health, or 2 health and 3 health in this game is very, very, very big. And we actually do draw into another Iceborne Legacy, so we're in a great spot right now. I think we just dropped the Aristocrat. Now, see, again, he's playing Omen Hawk. At this point, I'm not worried about Avalanche at all. I mean, everything that he's playing is showing me that he is just buffing his units. So I could care less about flooding the board. I can go all out. I can play whatever health minions I want. I really don't have to worry about any removal, to be honest with you, because Avalanche is really one of the only removal pieces that Freljord has. Everything else is Frostbite, so I don't really have anything to worry about. I could go for the pack mentality here right off the rip, but he has 7 mana. And that's not really something I want to do. I don't have to worry about deny, so I could have done that. Like, I very well could have done that. But I'm not in range for lethal. That card is something you want to use for lethal only, or at least getting very close to lethal. This way, I get another Iceborne Legacy off, so anything that dies, like if he kills my Aristocrat, I'm going to get now a 3/3 token from the Aristocrat, which now that's insane value. And I'm also going to get some more poke damage in on this, even if he blocks with everything. Now you can see here I'm pulling up the Braum to check what he's at. So he's only going to need 3 more damage after this. And I knew that going into this attack. You know, it is what it is. I got to do what I got to do. So the great thing here is that, again, I'm going to get another 3/3 token. And still have a pretty strong board. So you can see from what used to just be a bunch of Spiderlings, now I have a 3/3, 2 3/3s, and a 4/2. And it's funny, you can see that at this point, you know, we're an aggro deck. And usually an aggro deck is losing card advantage over the opponent because you're just putting everything into their face. You're trying to attack them. However, because of the token mentality behind this deck, it actually has a lot of inherent core like value of just card value. So you get Crawling Sensations a 2-for-1. You know, when you start buffing these things with the Iceborne Legacy, the value is even more incredible because now you're not just getting 2 1/1s. You're getting 2 things that are probably going to trade for even value, if not more. So you can see now we're basically just setting up for Pack Mentality and Brood Awakening. I mean, it's just a matter of time, you know, when we get that in. Now, this turn is interesting because he has a 4 Demacia. So if he plays that and I just block with everything, my whole board dies, and now suddenly Pack Mentality is not that great. I end up passing, and I remember this, with the thought in mind of he's going to play the 4 Demacia, then I'll probably just take a bunch of damage from 2 of them, lose, you know, 2 of my units, and then next turn, you know, deal with the Brood Awakening and then go from there because he's only going to have the 4 Demacia for 1 turn. So that would basically put me winning 3 turns from now. Instead, I end up playing They Who Endure, which really messes up his plans because now it's a 9/9. One of those units not only gets blocked but gets killed. And then I really only end up having to block 1 other unit to really survive. Then he's only doing 13 damage, which is out of the range of any buff that he can play for 3 mana. And we're good to go for next turn to play Pack Mentality and just rush him down. All right, so I might have lied in the beginning. I apologize. I did not remember. This game, I actually won by turn 9. So it actually just shows you how long that this aggro deck can actually battle for without losing too much advantage. The second game is won by turn 5, I believe. Turn 5 or 6. So hold on for the second game for the real fun. So real quick, we're going to go through this second game, which I win super ridiculously fast. We got Crawling Sensation first hand, and we kept the Iceborne Legacy with it as well, obviously, which is just insane. This hand is like a dream hand. This hand is insane. So right now we're playing against Ionia. The only thing we're worried about is a deny, which they can't deny the Iceborne Legacy, so we're good on that. And even if they do deny the Crawling Sensation, which they almost never will because it's such a low-cost card, then that just means we draw out a deny. And even if they draw out the deny on the Brood Awakening, we still have Crawling Sensation. So it's kind of like a catch-22 of at some point, we're going to get off one of those spells that's going to swarm the board, and Iceborne Legacy is going to make it hurt like hell. So I play the Brood Awakening, and funny enough, they actually play Will of Ionia, which is fine because it doesn't deny it, and that's really all I care about. So now I am worried at this point about taking the damage from the Solitary Monk because she's super strong now, but they played it on their turn, so there's not much they're really going to be able to do. So instead, I play the Elise, and they end up having a block because now they're so far behind at advantage. Like, they're never going to be... There's no way Ionia and Demacia, they don't have a way to clear my entire field. They don't have a Withering Wail, right? And then Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Do I have the most broken 1-cost card in the game in my hand? Yeah, why, yes, I do. Let me just play that right quick and win the game. Alright, guys, that is it. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Honestly, I love this deck. It is hella fun. I'm going to try to keep playing it in ranked and see how far I can get with it. There's a lot of changes I want to make, too. Possibly the Black Spear doesn't really go with the strategy other than things need to die for it to activate. Don't really know if I even need the removal. I think, you know, it puts enough pressure on the opponent where I don't really need to care about their field. It's kind of like solitaire, right? I'm just worried about what's happening on my field. Don't really care what the opponent's doing. So, Pack Mentality is another good option. Not sure if I want to keep the girl that does the 1 damage to the face in there either. I don't know why I can't think of her name right now. But anyways, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Loving Legends of Runeterra still so far. I can't wait till this game comes to mobile and there's more sets. This game is absolutely fantastic. So, don't forget to like if you like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And as always, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you. And peace out.